My name is Armen Sarkissian, and I'm standing here not as an ambassador of the Republic of Armenia. And for this moment, you have to accept me as a simple Armenian, born in Armenia, from parents and grandparents that come from Western Armenia, that have faced and lived through the genocide. And I'm going to share with you some of my personal emotions and feelings. Again, this doesn't have anything to do with my political or diplomatic work. It's just a humble Armenian standing in front of you. If instead of me there was someone else, you will hear similar stories, better stories, worse stories. I was driving the car to come here, and I was reading the very interesting article, very important article in the Financial Times that Mr. Tanekas was referring here. And I was thinking, at the end of the day, this is wonderful, I think. We see in the Financial Times, in a professional newspaper, a true article about the story. But I was thinking, what is, at the end of the day, the message of genocide, the message of the 24th of April, for any of us? You take any Armenian, they will come to you with a dozen of reasons and stories why 24th of April is important. And what's the message of 24th of April? And what's the message of genocide? So I would like to share with you with 2 or 3 or 4 of my thoughts why 24th of April is important and why the message of genocide of Armenians is important. Well, first of all, it's important because it's a horrible story of 1.5 million of lost lives, innocent lives. First of all, it's important because it's a story of lost homeland, lost generations, not one, but several. Let me take you back some 50 years ago. I'm speaking about 1965, March and April. Back in Yerevan, a life of a small boy that was going to school in Yerevan called after Yerishe Charens, which is on Armenian Street at that time, close to the Lenin Square, which is the Republican Square now. Well, he was a good schoolboy, didn't have much to do homework at home, so he had a lot of time. The mother was working, so he loved going after the school to see his grandma that lived nearby in a place called Kilikia or Cilicia. Well, Cilicia is the last lost kingdom of Armenians on the Mediterranean. And there is a region in Yerevan called Cilicia. And it looked like a fairy tale because there was a big, nice building like a castle. In fact, that was the famous Armenian brandy factory building. And the grandmother of that boy lived there. And usually daytime she was alone because the uncle and the family were working. And the boy loved going to see her because, first of all, she made wonderful food from the country, from Yerkir. Beautiful meatballs, vegetables, soups. And she was telling beautiful stories about the beauty of the country, the mountains, the people, the honesty of people. And then, thirdly, they had a secret. She told him that you are grown up now, and I will tell you stories that you don't have to tell anybody because it's dangerous. I just want to remind you, this is 1965 in Soviet Union, and the word genocide, anything related, was treated by Soviet Union, by the party and the KGB as a nationalist act. So you have a secret, and that secret about the story of the grandmother. She was 18 when this all started, from a very wealthy, successful family. The husband was on a trade tour, and she came to visit her father's house in Bitlis and Alashket, which is near Lake Van. And one day they were warned that terrible things will start. This was just 2 days before the 24th of April. And they were advised to leave as soon as possible. But leaving is easy said. difficult to do. So she, with her household and with relatives, took the path to the north, towards Armenia. Walking, they didn't take anything. Walking nighttime, very cold still, and hiding daytime because they were attacked by soldiers. They were attacked by mob, by gangs. Amazing story. She was 18. She lost her first child there. And there were around 18, 19 people. Only 5 survived. And she was telling me we were lucky. She was telling the boy we were lucky. And the boy couldn't understand. How can on earth 19 people, only 5 survived, they were lucky? And she explained that we were lucky because we went to the north. You see, if we would stayed, we would be taken to the south, to the desert. And none of us survived. And she was telling, this is a secret, keep that. As when you are in the water, under the water, you keep your mouth shut because there is air in your mouth. You shouldn't let that air out. Because that air is the truth, and that truth, like a bubble, will go to the surface. On the 24th of April, 1965, something unexpected happened in the capital of Soviet Armenia. Thousands and thousands of young men and ladies, students of universities, went onto the streets, shouting about truth, about lost land, about genocide. Hundreds of them were arrested later. So it was completely unexpected by Soviet. After the school, the boy ran to his grandma. Grandma, I saw thousands of young men shouting what you were telling me. He said, I told you. And grandma, this was not a bubble. This were a flood of fresh air. And she said to the boy, my boy, you cannot hide the air under the water. Sooner or later it will come on the surface of the water. So the truth will come to the surface one day. So that's a message of 24th of April. Maybe another message for me. That boy was me. And there may be another message for me. And that's a message, also a lesson, I think, to all Armenians. And I would like to take you back again to Armenia in 1988, when the movement for independence of Artsakh, Karabakh started. I think this was a genuine, honest, clean movement for independence of Nagorno-Karabakh, Artsakh, that was given to Azerbaijan unjustly by Joseph Stalin a couple of years ago. And this was some sort of a movement for independence and freedom of many things, including thought and words. But what we started to see there back in Armenia in 1988, that again maybe we will be facing the same story. Here we are, another empire on the verge of collapse. And here we are, Armenians thinking of freedom, Armenians thinking of truth, and they are suppressed. And the first signs were exactly the same. And under the patronage of the Soviet army, basically they started moving Armenians from Shaumian region, Lower Karabakh, the massacres that started in Sumgait, exactly the same scenario. But I think the message of 24th of April of 1915 was learned by Armenians then, because none of us wanted to have another 24th of April. So the message was, you have to fight for it, because we cannot allow another genocide. And that's why, shoulder to shoulder to the heroic people of Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, there were Armenians from Armenia, but all over the world from diaspora. And Armenians won that battle. Not because the army was bigger, not because they were better equipped, no. They were fighting for truth. And they have learned the lesson of the genocide of 1915. Thirdly, I think this is also a message and a lesson for not only Armenians, but the world. As Lady Cox was saying, We see the fresh air coming of truth to the surface of the water now. And if we don't learn the lessons of the Armenian genocide, if we don't recognize the lessons of the Armenian genocide, that genocide in this or that form will repeat it here and there. It repeated with the Holocaust. It repeated itself in Cambodia, in Africa. So what's the way of fighting it? First of all, speaking the truth and the old truth and recognizing what was done wrongly. And I do agree, there is only one way for reconciliation, necessary reconciliation between Armenians and the Turks. And that path goes through recognition and apology of what has happened and beyond. And fourthly, for me personally, the message of 24th of April is not only a message of huge tragedy, loss, and a genocide, but it is a message of victory. Victory of Armenians over genocide. Because the whole idea of genocide was to exterminate a nation, the whole nation of Armenians. They didn't succeed. Here we are, the nation worldwide, between 8 and 10 million, successful everywhere in science, business, politics. A country, not even one but two, Republic of Armenia and Republic of Artsakh. So for me, this is 100 years, not only of a great tragedy, but 100 years of a history of you, history of great survival, and the victory over genocide. And I am sure that the whole truth from the bottom of the sea, like in the story of my grandmother, one day will come up like a fresh air to the surface of the water, and the world will fully recognize what has happened 100 years ago. And with these words, I would like to take this opportunity to invite all of you to another event which will be on the 3rd of May at the Royal Festival Hall, a concert which is called Music for Armenia, a Remembrance Day. But it will have two parts. The first part will be Mozart's Requiem and our Patarak, the Mass, the Holy Mass, the remembrance part of that. And the second part will be Aram Khachaturian's Violin Concerto, celebration of victory over genocide. Aram Khachaturian was supposed to also be lost if we would not defeat genocide. Thank you very much.